Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jackie Enterline, and I'm the Media and Outreach Manager here at GuideStar. We're excited to have you all join us to work through the Platinum GuideStar Nonprofit Profile Participation Level. We're calling today's event a work session because we hope it will be exactly that. During the event, we're going to cover all of the information you need to know and dive right in with you to complete this participation level. We'll also be available during this hour to answer any questions you have as you complete the Platinum profile. With that said, since today's event will be so interactive, I wanted to take some extra time to go over logistics. Right now and through the first portion of today's event, we're going to be working in the WebEx platform that you've currently joined us in. Later, we're going to encourage you to jump right into your organization's profile, so at that time you'll need to open up an internet browser to do so. So you'll be navigating back and forth, but if at any time you have any questions, please feel free to submit those in the Q&A box here on WebEx. To submit a question, simply drop it into the Q&A box within the platform. And if you don't see the box right now, move up to the top of your screen and select the Q&A button. And if you're on a Mac, it looks just a little different and the button is on the bottom. Our hope is to answer all of your questions today during this event, but if we're unable to get to any of them, rest assured we will be reaching out to you directly to get you pointed in the right direction. So send anything and everything our way. Before we dive into the nuts and bolts of the Platinum participation level, I wanted to take just a few moments to recap GuideStar's nonprofit profiles as a whole, which includes the other participation levels. For some of you joining us today, you may not have been the person within your organization to complete the other levels. Even if you were, it may have been some time ago. So let's do a quick recap to make sure we're all on the same page. As you're likely aware, your organization submits a ton of information about itself from day one, and that information goes to the IRS. So to make that information accessible, we receive it directly from the IRS and build out a profile for your organization. At that point, your profile consists of just bare bones information that you supply to the IRS. This is mainly through your annual return, the Form 990. But imagine this. You're on a first date, and to introduce themselves, your potential suitor hands over their individual tax return as an attempt to explain who they are and what they do. As crazy as that sounds, at GuideStar, we believe sole reliance on the Form 990 for learning about nonprofits is just as crazy. So enter the GuideStar nonprofit profile participation levels. The participation levels are like a staircase. So your first step to achieving Platinum is to make sure your organization has earned the bronze, silver, and gold seals of transparency. By participating and completing each of these levels, your organization supplies more and more information about your nonprofit, thus getting you closer to sharing your full story. And with each level, you signify your organization's increasing commitment to transparency. So with all that said, I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Jasmine Morrow, who's our Director of Nonprofit Strategy here at GuideStar. Jasmine has been instrumental in helping ensure these participation levels help you as nonprofits share your full story, and is the perfect person to walk us through the Platinum level step by step. But first, she's going to give you a brief overview of what you need at each level. So Jasmine, I'll turn it over to you to get started.
Great, thanks so much, Jackie. So I want to, as Jackie said, just walk you briefly through each of the levels prior to Platinum. So let's start with Bronze. Bronze is, you can think of it as sort of entering your information into the phone book. This is your basic information so that you can be found. You're going to enter your primary contact information, your leadership information, programs that you do, and the ways that you're categorized. So this is a nice brief overview of all of those things, and since the slides will be available later, I won't read through each of them, but these are your kind of basic building blocks of your organization. And the next thing is the silver level. So this is financial information. Usually this can be done really quickly by uploading an audited financial statement. if your organization doesn't have an audited financial statement for any reason, it's just fine to enter this information manually. So your revenue, your expenses, assets, liabilities, and then you're all done. And of course, there's some supplemental information that we like to encourage folks to upload. What makes this different than the 990 is that it's a little more up to date. So the 990 takes a while to digitize and show up on your profile, but if you want that information to be salient and relevant and now, you go ahead and put that information in. So we like to think of this as growing trust and increasing your transparency. So next to last is gold. Gold is really how you articulate your organization's goals and strategies. So we developed these 5 questions along with BBB Wise Giving Alliance and independent sector. And these are the 5 questions that really articulate your organization's goals, strategies, and how you plan on getting there. So there's another really great webinar that we did last month all about how to walk through each of these and how to think about them, and that'll be something great to refer to, but we'll of course talk a little more about it as we go on. Usually my quick tip for this is that you've written all of this before. So this tends to be information that you put in your annual report or on grant applications, those sorts of things. So lastly, there's Platinum. And Platinum is really to showcase your progress and results. You can think of this as highlighting the change that you're making and really making that clear. So it's to put into numbers what you've already put into words. You've talked about your mission, your vision, your strategy, all of those things, and now you're saying these metrics that are important to us, this is how we measure them. This is what we measure to think about those things. So I'm going to walk you through all of the steps today, but in general, what you want to do is identify your metrics either through the Common Results Catalog or on your own. Share those metrics year over year, and then add some narrative and context and tie it back to your program. And we'll talk about how you do that in just a minute. Before we dive into that, I want to just give you an overview of our philosophy around Platinum. So some really important things to us are that this is your story as a nonprofit. We want to give you help to lift your platform in sharing that, but it's really about your choices. So the metrics that you choose are absolutely your choice. We supply a Common Results Catalog as a great starting space, but it's just that, and you can move beyond that. Similar, we really want you to share what you have and what you already use. This isn't about reinventing the wheel, it's about sharing what's already relevant to you. So we wouldn't ask you to measure something new. Also that everyone can share. So organizations that are large, small, that track 5 metrics, that track 50, all of those are important. Similarly, outputs and outcomes and your levels of relative sophistication around those are all welcome. We are a community of practice, not a community of ideals. So we want to reflect the sector as it stands. And also really important to us that we continue to improve, and we improve through your participation and your feedback. We have an internal slogan of be better, and we really stick really closely to that. So what I want to do now is transition into sharing my screen. I want to give you guys a demo first of what a profile with Platinum looks like, and then also I want to walk you through what it means to update your Platinum profile. So Maryland SPCA is a great example of a fleshed out Platinum profile. So you can see up here in the upper right, they've got the Platinum ribbon, and it shows their transparency level. And I just want to walk you quickly through a couple of the other great highlights here. So you guys are very likely familiar with the profile overall, so I won't spend a ton of time here, but this is a really great summary section that kind of in a nutshell tells you all about this organization. And some of their revenue and expenses, those sorts of things. And what we think is the meat of any organization is their programs and results. So we put that front and center. This impact statement is something that they've answered in gold. The reason that we have Platinum at the very highest tier is because we really want you to have told your organization's full and fleshed out story so that your numbers aren't sort of hanging without context. We think that context is incredibly important. So they've talked a lot about their programs here. And then as we go further down, we can see their Platinum results. So There's a section for target population that's absolutely optional, and because right now all of our target populations are human entities, the SPCA doesn't have a connection for those. And then also your programs are completely optional. So if you have a metric that's more overarching and doesn't relate to a specific program, this is a great way to talk about that work. And then also if you have something that relates very specifically to a program, it's a great way to do that. So they've got 2 years of data here, which is a really great start. And another thing that's really great here is that they've added some context. So they want you to know not just about the fact that they've rescued animals, but also that they add additional care. And so that's what this context is showing here. And so similarly, you can see that they've had some growth year over year, which is really nice to see. And so this is the number of pets served through their spay and neuter program. They've added a lot of great context here, and then same there. And then what comes next is the answers from their gold section. So this is, now that you've seen some of the numbers attached to our story, this is our overall theory of change and what we're aiming to accomplish and how we plan on getting there. So you can see that it's a really full and fleshed out story. So now that we've seen kind of the front end and what it looks like at the very end, I want to take a step back and walk you through the process of adding these. So for this, I'm going to go into GuideStar's back end. So I click Update Nonprofit Profile. You can see in the right-hand corner here that I'm already signed in. And so I'm going to go ahead and click GuideStar. And once you're here, you can see on this right-hand corner, this is how you will navigate to the different sections. So I'm going to navigate over to Platinum. And so what's great about Platinum is that you have these really simple step-by-step guides. So first step will be to review the metrics. Next, you can select metrics that fit your organization, and then you'll report those results. So it's pretty clean and simple, and they walk you very nicely through those. So this first section is just telling you a little bit more about choosing your metrics. Here's a note that you can tag your metrics with populations a little further on. So you might not necessarily say number of elders, you might just say number of people and then tag it with elders later, if that makes sense for you. So there's a couple options. You can view the PDF, and that's the Common Results Catalog, or you can go straight to search. So I'm going to go ahead and open the PDF in another tab, but I'm going to move straight to search for now. So you can click here or you can click here. They'll take you to the same spot. So there's a couple things that are really great about this search. One, so you have over here in the left hand ways to filter. You can filter by category. And you can also filter by service strategy. So we're an organization that does more advocacy or more capacity building. You can click those. You can see that this is a relatively short list of categories. And so we definitely expect that to grow over time. This is just a nice starting spot for you. Something that I really like is the fact that you can search by keywords. So let's say I wanted to search something like youth. You can see that I get youth. I also get listings for things around, let's see if I type children. I get children, I get infants, I get adolescents. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that you can find those synonyms. It's important to us that if you can, you find metrics that are in the Common Results Catalog, just because then you can build comparisons over time and you can track what your peers are doing and those sorts of things. But you should never feel like you are tied to just these. You can always feel free to use others. So once I click a metric, it winds up down here so that I can later add more information to it. So you can click as many of these as you like. You can do up to 20. And I can also say, no, I decided that I don't quite want to talk about this one. If I can't find a metric, I can always just add my own metric. So here in the custom metric section, you can type in a metric. you just click this and it says, I understand that creating a custom metric means it's not comparable in other fields, which is just fine. It's just something that's nice to note. We give you this little format here, number of blanks who XYZ, just because that's a kind of a nice format to follow. So what if I wanted to say something around percentages? I would say percent of youth who contact our organization. And I'm going to go ahead and click Add Metric. So you can see here that something that we do is supply a couple that might look similar, just in case you might have missed them, just in case they make a little bit more sense. So average youth self-rating, total percentage of forest cover. So none of these happen to fit mine, and that's totally fine. So instead I'll say use mine, and I'll add a metric here. So now all of the metrics that I've entered are here, and I'll go ahead and click continue. Now, because our organization has entered information before and we've already shared some things on Platinum, there are some pieces that are already here. So you can see that there's some information that we've already entered from 2014, from 2015. If I scroll a little further down, what's nice about this is you can sort of see a dashboard of exactly what you have been seeing, or all of the information that you've already entered, where you've entered your optional notes, those sorts of things. It's kind of a nice stopping space before you, make it public for everyone to see. So these are the couple that we haven't added metrics to just yet. And I'm going to go ahead and click this. And I click edit. If I decided that I didn't want this yet, or I changed my mind, I could always click delete. But right now I'm going to click edit. And here you can see a couple things. One, I can enter any years here. This does take just whole numbers and not percentages, but you can do decimal place numbers. If you want to show something as a percentage, you would just write percentage of up top here when you're naming your metric. So I can put my years here, and I want to say this year was 130. I'm really like to encourage you guys to add years so you can get more historical context. You just click this add a year section here. So I want to add up to 2012. And let's say the year before that was 100, and 100 again, but 90, and these are just made up numbers for now. And I can add some context here. Another thing that's great is that you can add some metrics, you can add what programs these are related to. So we've put these programs in our bronze section. If I decided, you know what, I really want to update our program, I could always go back to the bronze section, update the programs, and then come back here and connect it to one. So that's something that's really nice to do. You can also click population served. And for GuideStar, our population served tends to be general or unspecified because we are more of an intermediary organization. But there's a ton here to choose from. This is also optional, but it's a nice way to connect what your metrics mean to a particular population. So you can also choose whether or not you're ready to display this on your profile. So yes, display, no, don't display, or display, but display is no longer tracked. So you can do this your first time in. This would be more of your second or third time in. Let's say it's been a couple of years, and you would really like to share that that's how you used to think about your work, but you've shifted away from it. This is a nice time to hit that. When you want to click Do Not Display, it's usually, we wanted to give you the option of having put in the information, but you want to maybe check in with some other folks at your organization, make sure your numbers are correct, or the way that you're setting your context is clear, those sorts of things. And then, of course, yes, display is make this public, make this on my profile. So these are some nice bare bones pieces for that, and they all sort of stack really nicely together. So you can see here, again, there's just that overview of all of the pieces. So I'll talk really briefly about setting context. So the notes, the optional notes are for you. So you can say, this is more insight into why we collect this. You can say, this is how we collect this information and how we verify it. You can, share a very short story of what this ultimately will do for your target population, those sorts of things. So it's really there for you to add whatever context you think is most important. Thing that we like to say a lot at GuideStar is no stories without numbers, no numbers without stories. So even in the section where we're talking primarily about metrics, we really want to give you a space to add some language and some context to that. We never want your numbers to stand alone unless you want them to, but we would never sort of extract them from that. So you can see here that there's the yes display section is here. This is connected to our Enabling Better Decisions program, but we've chosen not to put notes here because we feel like this is relatively self-explanatory versus something like this where we felt like we wanted to give a little more context. So once you're all done with that, you can always leave a couple blank and come back to those later, and they won't display on your profile until you've added information to them. So these guys, even if I press publish, won't appear on our profile because there's no more information there. So once I click continue, it will show that I've completed the platinum section and take me to the next thing. So I want to backtrack a bit and talk to you guys about the common results catalog. So now that we've kind of walked through the whole process of what it looks like to select a metric, I want to take you back. So you can always use the search functionality here, but you can also use that common results catalog that we talked about. So a couple of things that are really great about the common results catalog is that it's just that. It's through our research, metrics that we've found that are reported a lot. So it's relatively likely that you might find some things that relate to your organization in one way or another. So the way that you use this is a couple of things. One, you can find exactly how it relates. Another thing that you can do is see which of the metrics that you already track might easily translate. Or you can also just, in our user testing, we found that a lot of folks just like to flip through and see what other people were measuring. Ultimately, they still captured the things that they themselves are measuring right now, but it was a nice look forward. So, and this just articulates exactly that. So decide which metrics fit your profile, get in this list, have conversations. We've made this a PDF because we think that it might be a nice idea for you to print these out and have a tangible conversation at a table, point at some things, mark this up, rule some things out, those sorts of things. So we've separated it out. Let me take you back to the table of contents. And you can see that these are some of our general categories. There's a ton in general metrics that might fit. And I also don't want you to feel like you can't use any metric that's from any part. So if you're a youth development organization, but a ton of the things that you do are really based around economic development, that's great, and you should go for that. You should feel free to use these from all over. So let's say I work in environment. I'm going to run over to page 19. All right, here we are. And you can see that it's also broken up into some subcategories. So these are topics around conservation, and within that there's education, there's external capacity building, there's law and policy, and you can sort of take these in and look through them as it makes sense for you. And then there's more on sustainable agriculture, which doesn't have as many subcategories, but is also sort of pulled out into one section. Health and wellness is mental health and also physical health, those sorts of things. So you can feel free to look at it like that. So what I don't want you to do is be intimidated, come to this page and see that it's 32 pages and think that you need to read all of those. No, this is a skimming document. You want to take it, take the pieces that make sense for you and leave the rest. And feel free to use it to spark conversation or to get your mind flowing or however it is that you might do that. So those are the major pieces I wanted to share with you. And then we'll talk, of course, a lot more in the Q&A. So I wanted to just briefly talk about how we at GuideStar thought through our metrics. So we do a lot of public sharing of our metrics, really similar to the way that a ton of organizations do on things like annual reports. So we have a quarterly impact call, and we also share some things in some publications. So we gathered all of those shared metrics to just have a conversation about them and discuss which ones we might like to share publicly, which ones would need more clarity, which ones really needed to be paired with others, how we might talk about them on our profile. And then we narrowed the list down. We felt like our sweet spot as a relatively large organization was, under 20, but probably more than 10. And so we landed at about 8. And so we narrowed that list down. And then once we had that list narrowed, we got final approval from our senior staff, and we were good to go. We tracked down the rest of the numbers, and we put it up. So it was, for us, a relatively simple 3-step process, having a lot to do with we really wanted to adhere to our own principles of not inventing new things to measure, but sharing the things that we already measure and already are feeling comfortable sharing publicly. So that was really important to us. And lastly, before I wrap up and open up for Q&A, I just wanted to point you to this great resource of guidestar.org/platinum. So there's a ton of FAQs there. There's also just a nice walkthrough of things like who sees the profile pages, what it means to enter that information, and so forth. So that's a really great resource for you to use. I'd also just like to encourage you to reach out to our outreach coordinator, Lauren House. She's always happy to help. She is great at either general questions over email, or if you'd like more one-on-one support, she's happy to set up a call or a Skype or something like that with you. So I just want to encourage you to take advantage of those resources as you're thinking through your own platinum profiles. So that said, I want to pass it back to Jackie and open it up for questions.
Great, thank you, Jasmine. So while you were sharing your screen, the Q&A box was hidden, and now if you can just stop sharing it, it will open up for everyone.
Okay.
So if you were thinking through any questions, you can now enter them into the Q&A box. Perfect. Thank you. So I'm seeing a lot of questions about other levels, and just in the interest of time, we'll follow up with you all individually. One of the questions is, what if my cause area isn't listed in the Common Results Catalog?
So that's a really great question. So one thing that we really like to stress is that the Common Results Catalog is a great jumping off space, but it's by no means meant to be exhaustive. So what we really want to encourage you to do there is to add more. So that Common Results Catalog is an ever-growing document. As you add metrics from the cause areas that we missed, they will be added to the Common Results Catalog for other organizations to share and to grow their knowledge in. So we just never want you to feel like what's written there in the Common Results Catalog is it and you can't reach platinum without it. We really want you to share the metrics that you already collect.
Great, thank you. So someone says, we've chosen metrics from the catalog that relate to our various programs, and what is the most efficient way to pull these metrics from the catalog, considering that one program may use metrics from several other categories?
That's a great question. So I would say that the best way to do that is just by typing the metric exactly into the keyword search. Sometimes I copy paste it into, if I want to get really quick, I'll copy paste it into the custom metric, and then it'll suggest that exact same metric to me, that's totally fine. What I gather is that you're saying you've already selected these from the Common Results Catalog, so now it's just a matter of typing it in. And whatever way is going to be easiest for you to do that is how I would go about that.
Great. How far back should your metrics go?
So that's a great question. So you can go as far back as the year 2000. We really want to encourage you to, one of the great things about this whole context is that you can share your organization's history and growth and progress. And so you can go back the last 15 years, which is really great. If you only have a couple of years to share, that's totally fine too, but you can feel free to go back as far as the year 2000.
Great. So once an organization has submitted a Platinum application, what is the turnaround to hear back on the status?
So I think what you might be referring to is the early adopter program. And so our early adopter, now that we've completely launched Platinum, you are just free to come in at any time and get to Platinum. If you're talking about having claimed your profile, that is usually about a 24-hour turnaround, and then once you get that email that says you have access to your profile, then you're good to go.
Great. So how do you compare your results and metrics to others in the field?
That is a great question. So right now, it's a matter of just searching. It's something that we, in future iterations, are looking into adding a lot more robust contextualizing. Right now, you would look for other organizations that are at Platinum and take a look at their metrics.
Great. So someone says they've added metrics, but they don't have a Platinum seal of transparency. So why would that be?
So the way that you want to think about achieving Platinum is that it's a stair step. So without having achieved bronze or silver or gold, you can enter Platinum metrics. You're always free to enter them and they'll show up on your profile, but you won't earn that Platinum seal of transparency until you've earned gold, until you've earned silver, and until you've earned bronze. One thing that tends to happen to folks is a quick stick on silver. So if you haven't, say, uploaded your audited financials, but you've entered all the rest of the information, that could be something that's holding you up.
And speaking of gold, what are the primary benefits of Platinum over gold?
So I'd say that the huge benefit of Platinum over gold is that you are sharing more information, you're more directly combating the overhead myth. So increasingly, donors are more and more savvy. They're willing to do more and more research, and they're demanding more of that from nonprofits. In the absence of good data, they will take any data. And usually the piece of that that really sticks out for folks is overhead ratios. And at GuideStar, we think a lot about wanting to shift that for nonprofits. As a nonprofit ourselves, we understand the importance of investing in your outcomes. And this is a really great way to share your true outcomes. So gold is a really great way to articulate how you plan on getting there. And then Platinum is that icing on the cake of how you did it, what your results were.
And is there a cost to organizations to put this additional information on their GuideStar nonprofit profile?
That's a great question. So I always really love telling people this answer because I feel like we don't say it loud and proud enough. It's completely free to do all of this. So bronze, silver, gold, platinum, it is always free to share your information because that's just one of our primary goals as a nonprofit ourselves, is to raise the platform of other nonprofits.
So what do you do if there are no relevant metrics to your organization in the Common Results Catalog?
That's a great question. So the Common Results Catalog is a great place to start, but if it doesn't fit your organization, please don't feel tied to it. So we'd love for you to take a peek through, but also if you go to, when you're in the section, there's at the bottom it says, not seeing your results, enter a custom metric. And you would just go there and type in whatever it is that your organization already tracks. and that's a great place to start.
And is there a limit on the number of custom metrics you can enter?
So there's no limit on the number of custom metrics, but there is a limit overall on the number of metrics. So custom or otherwise, you can only enter 20 is the maximum. But anything before then is golden. And they can be all custom, they can be all from the Common Results Catalog, or any mix of that.
Okay. Someone's asking, how do we find other platinum organizations on GuideStar?
So that's a great question. So in our next rollout of search that's coming very soon, you'll be able to search specifically for platinum organizations, and then you'll be able to see it. For now, there is a landing page, and we'll link to that in some of our results, and there's links to all of our early adopter platinum participants.
And
so if you go to guidestar.org/platinum, you'll be able to see a link there. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So is being at the gold level something to continue to share now that the platinum level is an option, and how will donors see the gold level?
Oh, absolutely. So we think that there's something to share at each level. So even if you're at bronze and that's what your organization, that's the level of transparency that your organization has reached, that's incredibly important to be celebrated. We think that these each build on each other, and the thing about gold is that it's this great articulation of your organization's theory of change. And it's also developed in partnership with some really bright other nonprofits, including Independent Sector and BBBY's Giving Alliance. As you share your gold participation level, that's still a really great thing to talk about because it shows your organization's, one, your commitment to transparency, but also that you've thought through your organization's short and long-term goals and how you plan on getting there. And so it won't be dimmed in the sight of platinum, but platinum is certainly a great goal in and of itself as well.
So someone else is asking, we have outcomes information on a small subset of total number of girls we serve each year. And is there a way to share that outcomes being shared that they represent a subset, but they believe it can be extrapolated as a whole?
Sure, yeah, that's a really great question. So I would say when you write in your notes section, you want to articulate that that's what's going on and say something about what you feel like that infers, and that's great to share. Another thing that I hear there when I hear that question is outcomes versus outputs, and both of those are wonderful. So if you've got outputs for your entire organization, outcomes for your whole organization, all of those are really great to share. So you could absolutely share both of those things, number of people served overall and number of particular outcomes for this small subset of girls through your program. Those are both great to share.
Great. So what if some of your evaluations are based on people's experience of your services rather than just numbers?
So I think that what you're saying is that you want to articulate something like how people felt when they come through your program. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You can still articulate that in numbers. I think a ton of that is what survey data is. So number of people who had this experience is a great thing to share. Other things that you might be sharing if you're wanting to share completely qualitative information, that's a great thing to put in your gold section, and then shift the other pieces that you want to share to your platinum section.
Thank you. And this question's kind of along the same line. So even though it's possible to create custom metrics around things like policy and system changes, they're harder to quantify. For example, creating one healthy corner store in a community could impact thousands. So what is the best way to reflect this?
That's a really great question, and my short answer is that I don't know. I think that this would be a really great question to take to the GuideStar community and to pose to other folks who do policy work and who have articulated those sorts of things. Overall, I think that you can share that one corner story. You can also share your estimated number of individuals impacted. Is it completely fine to do that? That's my guess, but I would love to open that question up to the community and to have more folks who are practitioners answer that for you.
Great, thank you. So do you have a suggested minimum number of metrics to share?
Sure, I think that a really great sweet spot is 3, but you can share as few as 1. There's a ton of organizations who are in our early adopter program who've shared 1 metric, and it's the 1 metric that matters most for their organization. So 1 is a great place to start. We usually say between 1 and 5 is a really nice place to start.
And what is the ideal time frame for updating Platinum?
That's a great question. So annually is probably a really great time to update your Platinum number. So each year you can say your total for the previous year. So organizations like the Maryland SPCA, they track monthly, and when they put their information in for their profile, they just aggregated all of that and put it in for the 1 year. So there's other parts of your profile that you'd want to come back and look at, say quarterly or or every 6 months, something like that. But this part of your profile annually is just great.
Someone says we have years and years of metrics that we've tracked. So how far back should we go?
That is wonderful to hear. The furthest back that you can go is the year 2000, which will give you 15 full years of data, which is a really robust sample of your organization's overall growth and progress and results. So that's as far back as you can go, but as far back as you are able to go, we'd encourage you to. So, obviously with that limit, but it's really nice to be able to, even right now at your first time into Platinum, show your organization's historical growth.
And so I think, even though we may be wrapping a few minutes early, this is actually a great question to wrap up on. How do you claim your profile if you're starting from scratch, you're not bronze? Where can you go and do this?
That's a wonderful question. So I'm going to share my screen just to give you a quick view of this. So I'm going to exit out. So when I'm at the GuideStar.org homepage, you click this Update Nonprofit Profile and sign out. You click Update Nonprofit Profile, and then you're taken to the Profile Update landing page, and you click Get Started Now. And here is where you would sign in or create a GuideStar account, and from there you would click Claim Your Profile. There's 2 steps to this. One, you create or sign into your GuideStar.org account, and then from there you sign in or claim your overall nonprofit profile. So once you put in this information, you would enter your organization's EIN, you'd enter a little bit more information, and it usually takes around 24 hours to be approved. And the thing that you would want to make sure of is that to ensure that it's quick and easy, the email address that you use should be the one that's associated with your organization. So I'm jasmine.morrow@guidestar.org as opposed to jasmine@gmail, that sort of thing.
Perfect, thank you. So Jasmine, do you have any other closing thoughts?
Sure, I think that the one thing that I want you to take from this is that it's entirely in your hands. So what you share, how you share it, how many metrics you share, those are all your organization's decisions to make. So we want to be here to help you share your story, but we never want to dictate to you what that is. So we really just encourage you to think through your own process and to share that on your website or on your profile in whatever ways make sense for you.
Perfect. So thank you everyone for joining us today. As always, if you have any other questions, please reach out to myself or Lauren. And Jasmine, can you share her email address one more time?
Sure.
Thank you. And please reach out with any other questions. We look forward to helping you all reach platinum.